Hey everyone, this is Cammie Westall with kind of an overview of Chapter 17, just an effort to sort of try to give you a few more visual resources. It is entitled The Triumph of Industrial Capitalism, and it's going to look at the changes as industry is getting bigger and bigger, and capitalism, meaning instead of the government controlling things, you've got this free market economy where private business owners have the opportunity to make a ton of money, and that works really well for some and not as well for others. So it starts out with the story of one immigrant's story, and then, my click didn't work. Then moves on to this famous railroad strike in 1877, as we see that there are conflicts that are going to emerge as a result of some people getting really, really rich and some people struggling with a lack of regulation. You know, this is a time period where there isn't a minimum wage law. There aren't workers' comp options if you get hurt on the job. A lot of these railroads, for you game players, this is Monopoly and things like that. This is the B&O railroad that gets this thing going, and so we just are going to see these conflicts as wages are falling because it's cheaper to manufacture things. You've got more and more immigrants who are desperate for jobs, and so therefore with an abundance of laborers, you don't need to pay them that much because there are so many. If you hold out for higher wages, then that's going to create a problem for you. Moves on to, it mentions on page 513 about the world getting a little bit smaller by Cyrus Field and these underwater cables that are planted. So now you can get, not quite as fast as a text message, but you can get in touch with people on the other side of the Atlantic. It's allowing for better communication, and that's great for business because your business can reach more and more people. So that means industry is continuing to grow and to thrive. And all of this is going to take place in the city. Can't get my little bar thing out of the way there. The cities, which is where industry is going to develop. You'll have tons of people moving in. They're going to become overcrowded. They're going to become dangerous. There's going to be some criminal activity that occurs. They'll have some super rich people and some poor people, but cities with immigrants moving in, with people trying to go to where the heart of the industry is, and these factories, these industrial factories, they are getting much, much bigger. So lots of things dealing with cities that we'll see in future chapters as well, and so this is where the big businesses are going to be able to emerge. It spends a lot of time on page 517 and 518, and then later on with his developments of the library as well with Andrew Carnegie, or where did he go? Carnegie. Why did I have that in there? Oh yeah, the Bowery. It's talking about electricity. This is a painting that had been done of the Bowery, mentioned on page 516, as electricity is flourishing. This is another huge change in the cities. This means that the cities aren't just active during the daytime with some lamplighters at night. They're going to be able to go all throughout the day. You're going to be able to have entertainment options. You're going to be able to have, on the consequential level, factories that are open longer hours as well. But all of this stuff going on in the city, making it an exciting and dynamic and sometimes dangerous place to be. Carnegie, born in Scotland, really a great rags to riches story, because he is one of these people who is not born into privilege at all. He works his way up. And the tough part about him comes in that since he worked his way up the ladder from the very, very bottom to the very, very top, he expects others to do the same. So he's not going to show much sympathy by trying to raise wages for his employees or anything like that. He kind of thinks, I put my nose to the grindstone and look what I did. I expect others to do the same. But Carnegie, benefiting from the steel market, first starting out with the railroad, Pennsylvania Railroad, again, more of that monopoly stuff, And then dominating the steel industry, steel, which is becoming so critical for several reasons, railroads and rail traffic. This is still before the automobile is there, and so it's much more reliable to have trains traveling by steel. Also, as skyscrapers are going up, as so many people are moving into the cities, it becomes more economical to build up instead of build out, and you need the reliability of steel there. So he takes advantage of buying Henry Bessemer's iron converting thing that it mentions briefly on page 19, and then how he's able to go from there and develop a huge amount of resources based on that vertical integration mentioned on page 520. So he's becoming a very wealthy person from that. And then John Rockefeller, who becomes famous for controlling Standard Oil, benefiting more to that from the horizontal consolidation in business. But Rockefeller dominating oil, which is going to be needed so much, not only, and he's oil which had been used for kerosene lamps, so electricity is threatening him in that vein, but also so needed as the railroad car industry is booming, as automobiles are going to start to be made around the turn of the century, and now they're going to need all kinds of oil products. So Standard Oil, a huge monopoly that's in there. And so these rich guys, they have tons and tons of money. I mean, astronomical amounts of money. But they all do these robber barons, that terminology. They give a lot of money away. Both of these guys help start universities. They're big philanthropists. Carnegie and his libraries. So they do some good things, but man, are they rich people. It then gets into 522 about the middle class, and we get this idea that's still around today of these white collar versus blue collar workers. The idea of the blue collar being more craftsman oriented, hands on. Now, as businesses are growing, you need more, like it says, more cashiers, more clerks who can handle the paperwork, the accounting, the collection of supplies that you need. Those white-collar jobs are developing as you're getting more of this middle class instead of just the industrial blue-collar workers. And then it gives some more details about working-class tendencies, the role of women, and those on page 523. Sort of how factories are working, that powerful image of Packingtown on page 524. Thankful that I didn't have to work in a slaughterhouse in Chicago. And just the difficulties that these factory workers are going to face. And similarly, down in the South where there's less industry, largely because there are fewer railroad lines, the sharecropping that particularly African Americans, but also a lot of white Americans are going to be held in bondage to in the South. Moves on to talking about the West, that overland trail helping carry people into the West. This is a map as it talks about Native Americans, and so we're going to see how immigrants, well, that's already been mentioned, how they're struggling, how factory workers are struggling. Native Americans are another group that struggles. This shows the lands that they lose, so basically saying, okay, before from 1850 to 1870, Indians thrived in all of this green and pink and purple area, and they lost that as more white settlers move in. By 1890, they have only these little purple areas, and so the difficulties that they face there. Custer, being a famous but controversial figure, they are mentioned on page 529. Had fought in the Civil War, was a very, very arrogant guy, graduated at the bottom of his class at West Point, yet when the Civil War broke out, went and bought the most expensive uniform he could get, had massacred Native Americans in Oklahoma Territory, Washita that it mentions in 529 about where the mouse is moving. I hope this thing is still recording. I lost a little bar. But Custer will go and cause problems when the Lakotas lose the territory that had been given to them by the Fort Laramie Treaty. And this is what we see is over and over the government going back on its treaties, that once gold was discovered in all of this area that had been promised to the Lakota natives, the army comes back in. Custer chases some of them before he will be killed at Little Bighorn by Sitting Bull and by Crazy Horse. And while that's bad, the government's not going to rest and say, okay, maybe we should back off. They're going to continue to pursue the natives. One last very sad struggle at Wounded Knee in South Dakota in 1890. This looks like a grave from the Holocaust, but these are Native Americans killed by the government there. And then the government continues to kill Indian subsistence. They pass the Dawes Act, mentioned on page 530, or the book calls it the Dawes Severalty Act. What this does is basically the government is saying, okay, here's how we're going to tackle the Indian problem now. We're going to try to break up their communal lifestyle, and we're basically going to try to turn them into people of European background, meaning they're going to work on private property. They're given lots of land, and the goal is to make them live like white farmers. Instead of living together and moving about where the best fishing or hunting territory might be and living in community and sharing those goods, they're trying to turn them into private property people. Some of the kids are taken away from schools. This is a before and after of one group of kids, of Native American kids, forced to go to a boarding school. And there are these questions to say, okay, maybe they've got better sanitation, but then look, you've taken them away from their families and you've forced them to become something they're not, and sad cases like that, and that are still controversial today as natives are mistreated. And this is a map that shows Native American reservations in the United States today, so you can still see, and some of these are some of the poor, especially up in South Dakota, like the Pine Ridge Reservation, some of the poorest areas in the United States. You hear about Cherokees, the Harris-Casina Cherokee, which is here. Cherokee is a pretty small reservation compared to a lot of these out west. But the natives have been through many difficult times. So as industry and capitalism are taking over, life is changing for a lot of different people groups in the United States. And that's kind of our rundown for Chapter 17 there. Am I still recording? I don't know. Okay, now we're stopping.